It is a story that is thousands of years old, yet it is a story you wear every single day. We are going to talk about jewelry. But we are not just talking about expensive diamonds or shiny gold. We are talking about the heart. We are talking about why humans, for as long as we have walked this earth, have always wanted to carry a little piece of beauty with them. So, let's begin our journey. Let's go back in time, together. Have you ever stopped to look at a ring on your finger? Or maybe a small necklace that you wear every day? Think about that piece of jewelry for a moment. Why do you wear it? Is it because it is pretty? Or is it because it reminds you of someone you love? Perhaps it was a gift from a mother or a promise from a partner. You see, my friends, jewelry is never just an object. It is a memory you can touch. It is a story you can see. For thousands of years, humans have felt a deep need to change how they look. We call this adornment. But why? Why does a person in a cold cave or a busy modern city feel the same need to put on a string of beads? Imagine a world without any mirrors. Imagine a world where you only see your face in the clear water of a river. Even then, in that quiet world, humans wanted to stand out. We wanted to say, "This is who I am." We wanted to show our power, our love, and our hope. Have you ever wondered if birds feel the same way when they find a bright feather? Or if the ocean feels proud of its pearls? We are part of nature, and nature loves to sparkle. Jewelry is our way of talking without using words. It tells the world if we are married, if we are rich, or if we belong to a certain group. But most importantly, it tells the world that we value beauty. Tonight, as we sit here, I want you to think of jewelry as a bridge. It is a bridge that connects us to the people who lived a long, long time ago. They had the same feelings you have. They felt the same joy when they saw something shine. Let's walk across that bridge. Let's go back to the very beginning, to a time before machines, before shops, and before money. Let's see how our story started with the simplest things the earth could give us. Let's travel back now, far, far back. Imagine you are standing on a beach 100,000 years ago. The air is salty and the wind is strong. There are no buildings. There are only the trees, the sand, and the great blue sea. You look down at your feet. You see a small shell. It has a tiny hole in it, made by the waves or a small creature. You pick it up. It feels smooth. It is beautiful. You find a piece of dried grass and pull it through the hole. You tie it around your neck. In that moment, you have created the first jewelry. My friends, the first jewelry did not come from a factory. It came from the earth. Early humans used what they found around them. They used colorful pebbles from the river. They used the bones of animals they hunted. They even used the teeth of grand creatures like wolves or bears. But why would someone wear a wolf's tooth? Was it just to look good? Not exactly. You see, back then, life was very dangerous. People believed that if they wore the tooth of a strong animal, they would become strong too. The jewelry was like a shield. It was a talisman, a lucky object to keep them safe from the dark. Think about how that feels. Imagine wearing a necklace made of shells from a place you visited long ago. Every time you touch it, you feel the sun on your skin again. For our ancestors, jewelry was a way to keep a piece of the world with them. These early beads tell us something very important. They tell us that even in a world where humans had to fight to survive, they still cared about art. They had a symbolic mind. This means they could look at a stone and see more than just a stone. They could see a meaning. In caves across Africa and Europe, archaeologists have found these tiny treasures. They are small, but they carry a big message. They say, "I was here. I am special. I want to be protected." Does it surprise you that shells and bones were our first diamonds? It shouldn't, because beauty is not about the price, it is about the feeling. And those first beads were full of feeling. They were the very first whispers of our history. Now, let the clock of time spin faster. The simple caves are gone. In their place we see great rivers, the Nile in Egypt and the Tigris in Mesopotamia. We see grand cities made of brick and stone. We see the birth of the first great empires. In these places, jewelry changed forever. Why? Because humans discovered metal. And not just any metal, they discovered gold. Imagine walking through an ancient Egyptian market. The sun is very hot, and everything seems to glow. You see a goldsmith working. He is not just making a ring, he is making a piece of the sun. To the Egyptians, gold was the flesh of the gods. It did not rust. It did not lose its shine. It was eternal. When a pharaoh wore a heavy gold collar, he wasn't just showing he was rich. He was showing he was like a god. They loved color, too. Have you ever seen a stone as blue as the deep ocean? That is lapis lazuli. They brought this stone from mountains far away just to make jewelry. They mixed it with red stones and green stones to create patterns that looked like the wings of birds or the flow of the river. But here is the most moving part of their story. The Egyptians believed that life did not end when you died. They believed you went on a long journey to another world, and they didn't want you to go empty-handed. This is why, when we open the tombs of ancient kings like Tutankhamun, we find so much jewelry. They were buried with rings, bracelets, and heavy masks of gold. They believed this jewelry would protect them in the afterlife. Can you imagine that? Loving your jewelry so much that you want to take it with you forever? In Mesopotamia, the jewelry was different, but just as beautiful. They made tiny gold leaves that looked so real you could almost hear them rustle in the wind. They used jewelry to show who was important in society. You see, my friends, in these ancient empires, jewelry became a language of power and religion. It was a way to talk to the gods and a way to rule the people. But at its heart, it was still about the same thing: the human desire to be remembered. Next time you see a gold ring, think of those ancient sands. Think of the craftsmen who sat by the Nile 4,000 years ago using the same gold that might be in your ring today. The gold stays the same, even as the empires fall. Let's leave the hot sands of Egypt and travel across the sea. We are now in the world of ancient Greece and Rome. In Greece, jewelry was about grace. If you look at a Greek necklace from that time, you will see how delicate it is. They loved filigree. This is a fancy word for very thin wires of gold twisted into beautiful shapes like flowers or butterflies. The Greeks didn't wear jewelry every day like we do. Usually, they saved their best pieces for special times, like weddings or big festivals. They believed that beauty should be balanced and natural. But then, things changed. A young king named Alexander the Great traveled across the world. He brought back new ideas and, more importantly, new gemstones from the East. Suddenly, Greek jewelry became full of color: purple amethysts, green emeralds, and red garnets. Now imagine we are in Rome. Rome was a city of power. It was a city of soldiers and senators, and in Rome, jewelry was a sign of your rank. It told everyone exactly who you were. Have you ever seen a cameo? It is a piece of jewelry where a face or a scene is carved into a stone or a shell. Romans loved these. A lady might wear a cameo of a goddess to show she was pious. A man might wear a ring with a special seal to sign important papers. In fact, the signet ring was very important in Rome. It wasn't just for decoration. It was like a person's signature. If you had the ring, you had the power. But Rome was also a place where many people lived. For the first time, Jewelry wasn't just for kings. Even common people began to wear simple rings of iron or bronze. They wanted to feel part of the beauty of the empire, too. Roman jewelry was practical. They invented the fibula, which is like a very beautiful safety pin used to hold their clothes together. They made jewelry that did a job, but they made sure it looked wonderful while doing it. As the Roman Empire grew, it became very wealthy. People started to wear more and more. Some writers back then even complained that women were carrying a whole fortune on their ears. Does that sound familiar? Even 2,000 years ago, people were arguing about whether it was too much to wear so much jewelry. But for the Romans and the Greeks, jewelry was a way to bring the glory of the empire into their daily lives. It was a way to feel strong, elegant, and connected to the world they were building. As we move forward in time, the world becomes a bit darker and more mysterious. We are now in the Middle Ages. Imagine a cold castle with stone walls and flickering candles. The clothes are heavy, made of wool and fur to keep out the chill. In this world, jewelry changed again. It became a symbol of faith and a tool for magic. You see, my friends, during the Middle Ages, religion was at the center of everything. Most people wore jewelry that showed their love for God. They wore crosses or small lockets with pictures of saints. But jewelry was also used for protection in a different way. People believed in talismans. They thought certain stones had powers. For example, they believed a sapphire could keep you peaceful, or a red stone could stop you from bleeding. Can you imagine wearing a ring because you thought it would keep you healthy? In a time before modern medicine, these stones gave people hope. They felt like they were carrying a little bit of magic in their pockets or on their fingers. In the Middle Ages, there were also very strict rules. These were called sumptuary laws. These laws said that only certain people could wear certain things. If you were not a noble, you were not allowed to wear gold or pearls. Jewelry became a clear keep out sign. It separated the lords from the peasants. But even then, beauty found a way. Because clothes were so heavy, jewelry had to be strong. They made large, beautiful brooches to hold their cloaks together. These brooches were often decorated with bright glass or simple stones. There was also a secret side to jewelry back then. Because life could be dangerous, some people wore jewelry that was hidden. A lady might have a beautiful ring hidden under her glove, or a knight might have a lucky coin sewn into his shirt. Jewelry was a secret treasure. It was something private in a world that felt very public. When we look at the jewelry from the Middle Ages, we see the craftsmanship of the monks and the goldsmiths who worked in small, dark shops. They didn't have modern tools, but they had a lot of patience. They created pieces that were heavy, solid, and full of meaning. It was a time of knights and legends, and every piece of jewelry told a story of loyalty, faith, and the hope for a better tomorrow. Now the world begins to wake up. The darkness of the Middle Ages fades away, and we enter the Renaissance, the rebirth. Imagine a grand hall in Italy or France. The air is filled with music and the smell of expensive perfumes. The people are wearing silk and velvet in every color of the rainbow. This was the age of art, and jewelry became the greatest art of all. During the Renaissance, painters and sculptors often started their training as goldsmiths. This is why the jewelry from this time looks like a tiny sculpture. It wasn't just a stone in a setting, it was a little scene. You might see a tiny gold ship sailing on a sea of pearls, or a tiny bird made of enamel and gold. New parts of the world were being discovered. Ships were coming back from far-off lands with things people had never seen before. They brought back huge amounts of pearls from the ocean and diamonds from India. Have you ever seen a portrait of Queen Elizabeth I? She is almost covered in pearls. Pearls were the ultimate sign of purity and wealth. People would sew them onto their dresses, their hair, and even their shoes. As we move into the Baroque period, everything becomes even bigger and more dramatic. Baroque actually comes from a word that describes an irregularly shaped pearl. People loved things that were grand and over the top. The jewelry started to sparkle more because people were getting better at cutting gemstones. Before this, stones were mostly rounded and smooth, but now they began to cut facets, the flat surfaces that catch the light. Imagine walking into a ballroom lit by hundreds of candles. Every time a lady moved, her jewelry would flash and sparkle like stars. It must have been a magical sight. In this age, jewelry was about show. It was about telling the world, "Look how much I have discovered. Look how much I know about art." But even with all this wealth, the human connection remained. This was the time when enamel became very popular. Enamel is like colored glass melted onto metal. It allowed artists to paint tiny, perfect pictures on rings and pendants. Often, these were pictures of loved ones. So, even in this age of grand displays and massive wealth, people still wanted to carry the faces of the people they loved close to their hearts. The dazzle was for the world, but the picture was for themselves. As we move into the 1700s and 1800s, the story of jewelry becomes very personal. It becomes a story about emotions. In the Georgian era, jewelry was often about secrets. Have you ever heard of acrostic jewelry? This is so clever. Jewelers would use the first letter of different gemstones to spell out a word. For example, to spell deer, they would use a diamond, an emerald, an amethyst, and a ruby. Imagine receiving a ring that looks like a row of colorful stones, but only you and your lover know it says love or adore. It was like a secret code you could wear on your hand. Then came the Victorian era, named after Queen Victoria. Victoria loved jewelry, and she changed the way the world wore it. When she married her husband, Prince Albert, he gave her an engagement ring in the shape of a snake with an emerald head. Now, today, a snake might seem like a strange choice for a wedding ring, but back then, a snake biting its tail was a symbol of eternal love, a circle that never ends. Because the Queen wore it, every woman in England wanted a snake ring too. But the Victorian era was also a time of great sadness. When Prince Albert died, Queen Victoria was heartbroken. She wore black for the rest of her life, and she wore mourning jewelry. This is a part of history that feels very strange to us now. Mourning jewelry was often made of jet, a type of black coal. But sometimes it was made of the hair of the person who had died. They would weave the hair into beautiful patterns and put it inside a locket or a brooch. Does that sound a bit scary? Or does it sound beautiful? To the Victorians, it was a way to keep a physical piece of their loved one with them forever. It was a way to say, "You are gone, but you are still touching my skin." This was also the age of the locket. Almost everyone had a locket with a tiny photo or a piece of hair inside. Jewelry became a vessel for our deepest feelings, our greatest loves, and our deepest losses. It reminds us that jewelry is not just about the good times. It is about the whole human experience. It is about the people who stay with us in our hearts, even when they are no longer by our side. We have reached the 20th century. The world is changing faster than ever before. There are cars, airplanes, and movies, and jewelry changed to match this new, fast world. First came the Art Deco style in the 1920s. Think of The Great Gatsby. Think of jazz music and bright city lights. Jewelry became very modern. It wasn't about flowers and hearts anymore. It was about straight lines, triangles, and bold colors. They used new materials like platinum, which is a very strong white metal. They used black stones like onyx next to bright white diamonds. It was a look that said, "The future is here." But then, something very important happened. Before this, most jewelry was fine jewelry, made of real gold and expensive stones. Only rich people could have it. But in the middle of the 1900s, costume jewelry became popular. Famous designers like Coco Chanel told women that it was okay to wear fake jewelry. She said that jewelry was about the style, not the price. Suddenly, a woman working in an office could wear a beautiful string of glass pearls or a bright brooch made of plastic and cheap metal. Jewelry became democratic. This means it was for everyone, not just the kings and queens. Have you ever noticed how many different styles we have today? In the 1960s and 70s, jewelry became very natural and bohemian. People went back to using wood, leather, and simple silver. In the 1980s, everything became big and gold and loud. The 20th century taught us that jewelry is a form of self-expression. You don't have to follow a law to decide what to wear. You can wear a plastic ring today and a silver necklace tomorrow. And because of mass production, we can all afford to have a little glamour in our lives. We don't need a crown to feel like a queen. We just need a piece of jewelry that makes us smile. Today, we can look back at all these styles, the lines of Art Deco, the colors of the 70s, the big gold of the 80s, and we can choose the one that fits our mood. Jewelry has become a playground. It is a place where we can be whoever we want to be. And so, my friends, we have traveled from the prehistoric beach to the modern city. We have seen shells, gold, pearls, and plastic. We have seen jewelry used for protection, for power, for religion, and for love. But what about today? What does jewelry mean to us right now? In our world of screens and digital things, jewelry is one of the few things that is still real. You can hold it. You can feel its weight. It doesn't need a battery. It doesn't need the internet. It just needs you. Today, jewelry is about identity. Maybe you wear a small piece of jewelry that shows your star sign or a necklace with your name on it. Maybe you wear a ring that you bought for yourself to celebrate a big achievement. And as we look to the future, jewelry is becoming even more thoughtful. People are starting to care about where their gold and diamonds come from. They want jewelry that is ethical, jewelry that doesn't hurt the earth or the people who find the stones. We are also finding new ways to make jewelry, like using 3D printers. But even with all this new technology, the reason we wear it remains the same. Jewelry is a whisper from the past and a promise to the future. One day, the jewelry you are wearing right now might belong to a grandchild. They will touch it and they will think of you. They will wonder about your life, your dreams, and your stories. So, my friend, look at your hands. Look at the jewelry you have in your home. Each piece is a little chapter in the story of humanity. Each piece is a little bit of magic that you carry with you. Thank you for walking through time with me tonight. I hope the next time you put on a necklace or a ring, you feel the weight of all those thousands of years of beauty. Remember, you don't need a diamond to sparkle. You already have a story, and that is the most beautiful jewel of all. Until next time, keep your heart bright and your spirit shining. Good night.